Nigeria's democracy is well over 20 years. The governed and government alike seem to have many issues for clarification on constitutional governance. Many of us, I included, not all the time, are ignorant of the constitutional roles and responsibilities that top functionaries in government often understand. And this is where we are going today on this special edition of Bridges. Bridges, like you know, are same, and that's what we're doing over the years, for you to bring understanding into governance, into what you should do, roles and responsibilities. And today is a special one. Wait for it. So we are saying that we need to have more understanding as people, especially as we look forward to 2023, where Nigerians are hoping that things would run smoothly, Bridges inclusive. So now, what should top individuals or top government functionaries be doing? What are their roles and responsibilities? How do we make them accountable going forward and making Nigeria a better place? So we'd like to look at those gray areas of perception by the body politic, how to ensure a result-oriented public service from the perception of an astute, I'll call him that, politician and former state governor, a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and with the benefit of the silk of law at the bar and bench behind him, or still with him, so to speak. Our guest, therefore, today on this program is none other than His Excellency Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, who is today the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing. This edition is very special because from the research that we've done for understanding amongst our people, we find out that we must bring clarification to how government runs so that people can see themselves in government, and those who are opportune to govern will see the responsibilities that they have so sworn to. And so this edition stands to clarify the position of candidacy, who fits into that position for us at the point in our political choice making. And so I'd like to welcome you to Bridges. Your Excellency, welcome to Bridges.
Thank you for having me, and you are a great bridge builder.
Thank you so very much. So what we've done is we've taken him from his bridges and bring him here. Actually, viewers, you know that, notice that our set is not the same. For a busy man like His Excellency, we needed to camp here in this office to ensure that we get this done. So thank you so much. Let's go straight into the topic, actually understanding what us as people out there, and you in governance. You've been a governor, you've been chief of staff, you've seen it through. But oftentimes people say, do we really need spears? You know, people that they call spears, like like the vice president, like the deputy governor. Let's start from there and we cascade down so that people can understand that what does the Constitution say to all these positions that sometimes a lot of people will do anything to be just part of it.
I think that that's the best place and the appropriate place really to start, because all of these offices are created by the Constitution. And I implore every Nigerian to read that document. You don't have to read it at once. If you read 2 pages of the Constitution every day, I think in a month or 2, you'll be done with it. And you will become sufficiently enlightened and perhaps even surprised at things that you took for granted. I know that in schools, many years back, there used to be courses of study in secondary school, government or civic education, where all of these things were taught, and I think that we should do a lot more. Unfortunately, we are learning now by sound bites, not by investigation and exploration anymore. And so we tend to believe some of the sound bites we hear, and probably where the sound bite, oh, the deputy governor or the vice president is a spare tire. Unfortunately, they are not. And it is easy also to quote what has been said in jurisdictions like the US about their vice president. The role of the US vice president is significantly different from the role of the Vice President of Nigeria or indeed a governor, deputy governor of a state. There are specific constitutional responsibilities that are prescribed for the Vice President of Nigeria. One of them is that the Vice President of Nigeria is the chairman of the National Economic Council. That involves all the state governors. It involves critical ministers, budget and national planning, petroleum, the Central Bank of Nigeria, who are the advisor of the president on economic matters. So it is important that whoever is to be appointed to the office of the vice president must have, first, minimum capacity, the capacity to read large volumes of documents, to understand economic policy at the basic, and to speak the language that people in business want. So for me, picking a vice president is not, you're not looking for a spare tire, you are looking for an economic advisor. And he's also the chairman of the National Council on Privatization. Again, that's an economic field in terms of policy. He's chairman of the National Boundary Commission, and that includes our local and international boundaries.
And sensitive too.
And very sensitive matter in terms of conflict management, dispute resolution, because land is a matter over which there are lots of conflict within the country. So you are not looking for a spare tire. You are looking for somebody who fits, who has the skill sets to do that job. So it's important for anybody trying to pick a vice president first to read the job description of the vice president in order to then look for somebody who has the skill set, in addition perhaps to somebody who can bring in electoral value in terms of votes and complement the ticket, and more importantly, somebody who can take that office with competence should anything happen to the number one.
Does that also follow for the deputy governor as well?
I mean, it follows like day and night, really, because at the state level, the deputy governor is also chairman of the Boundary Commission. He or she has no constitutional role relating to the economy. But I recall that in the 2 terms of duty that I served as governor, I made sure that the deputy governors who served with me were responsible for specific ministries. So I wasn't looking for spare tires. I was looking for people who could take work off my shoulder. So you're not looking for spare tires. So spare tires would have been discarded by now.
Okay.
So, and this is important.
This is very important because we need to understand this to understand how governance, how government runs, so that we can build the kind of bridge that we are attempting to bridge today to ensure that we understand the operations of government. So let's now go a little bit down. We understand how the functions of the vice president, ditto deputy governor. Now let's look at the people themselves, because after all, it's service to the people, like we're attempting to do on this edition of Bridges. Now, how do we promote citizens' participation in governance, especially seeing that there is a trust deficit and disconnect sometimes to leaders and the people they lead?
One of the things I would like to see more is a conversation around our duties. I think our public conversations are focused more about our rights. And I think that those rights have been either trampled upon or held in abeyance, especially during the period of the military. So a lot of attention has now been focused on duties, perhaps to the detriment focused on rights, to the detriment of duties. But our Constitution clearly prescribed for us as citizens in Section 24 certain specific duties that we are bound to undertake on behalf of our country if we want to enjoy the protection and the benefit that government is obliged to give to us. And those duties include protection of the flag, preservation of the dignity of the flag as a symbol of our sovereign status. Those duties include helping law enforcement agents to apprehend crime by providing them information and whatever support. Those duties include obeying laws made by government. And those duties, more importantly, include the disclosure, full disclosure of our income and payment of tax, in order that government can have resources. And they include other duties, I dare say. Those are some of the ones. So I don't know, everybody or many more people seem to know their rights. And when I talk to people about Section 24, they say, hey, is it there? And I think we must teach more of this. Wow. But more importantly, and this is important, is also the responsibility of each level of government. So I see a disconnect between the citizens and their understanding of what each government can and should do for them. So when I talk to people about education, I see that they are talking about primary education, which is the fundamental education, and primary health care. So when I tell them that federal government has no responsibility for primary health care, they say no. I say, yes, your local government. That place where they teach you the most important education, literacy. A for apple, B for boy, 1 + 1 is 2. That's in fundamental education. Federal government does not own a primary school, not one. So, and I see that as a possible point of discord between the warmth with which members of the public vote and embrace, and I've embraced every president since 1999, and how quickly that wedding and the honeymoon period ends very shortly.
Very, very.
Federal government does not have responsibility for primary health care. That place where you can get basic health care, health check, immunization of your children, they are local government responsibilities in the 4th schedule of the Constitution. And I think we should begin to familiarize. So if you are voting, what are you expecting? So if you are voting for a president to give you water in your state, you will not get it. It's not his job. Water supply in the state is not a federal government responsibility. The work of government at the center with regards to water comes with managing the water bodies, the lakes and the rivers, so that no state over-extracts water from one river to the detriment of others. After that, how you take it into your water works, how you purify the water to World Health Organization standards, how you pump it into the homes, federal government has no responsibility there. And so this is interesting, that people must understand this.
And it's, for me, coming from this background of bringing this to fore, is for us to understand, because people argue and say, all right, states have these responsibilities, but do they have the capability? And understanding the fact that, sir, you might have to just clarify that, that federal government sets policies and agenda, which states, you've been governor, must fall in. Now, using the lens of where we are at the moment, who do we monitor? Who do we say we go to demand for these particular social amenities? Okay,
so I like this conversation, and I think we should have it more. And let me pivot to the first question in terms of capacity, and capacity comes in many ways. It comes first in terms of resources, and then it comes in terms of manpower. Each state has a concurrent responsibility for secondary and tertiary education. So that's why state governments own universities. And that's why they even have more secondary schools than federal government has. So I tell people, how many secondary schools are in Lagos State, for example? And think of all the others. How many federal secondary schools are in Lagos State? I can remember King's College and Queen's College and Government College in Janiki off the top of my head. The majority of the other secondary schools are owned by the state government. And we used to have about 600 and something when I was governor.
That's huge.
There were over 10,000 schools in Lagos. So after the one owned by federal, 3 or 4, the 600 owned by the state government, The rest were owned by private sector, the missions, Christian and Muslim missions. So it tells you again where the bigger responsibility is. Of course, government is the regulator. So in terms of capacity, therefore, you have the institutional and educational capacity to build your manpower. But I will concede that maybe revenue allocation that gives more resources to state is a continuing conversation that we must have. But as far as policy is concerned, again, people must read the Constitution. There are areas where the state can depart in terms of policy. I don't agree, especially when there is concurrence of responsibility. So you can depart. The only place where the federal policy can bind you is with respect to matters over which only the federal government can make laws. And that is in the exclusive list. Because it is policy that leads to law.
Very interesting, very illuminating when you look at, some of the blames that comes to
it's something that must
that
really
the federal
be
government,
interrogated.
that the federal government had to wear. But knowing that, and sometimes is it that is a deliberate thing not to understand that governors are responsible for some of the gaps that we have? I like to use the word gaps.
Okay,
because you are talking about resources, and you don't all have equal resources.
So there are also places where governments, state governments, have the latitude to tap resources if they are ready to do the heavy lifting. Again, my state stands out as an example here. So 20 years ago, who could think that Lagos State would be raising internal revenues in the order of almost 50 billion naira today, given where it started from in 1999. And so to suggest that those resources are not there is to make a very, very untenable argument. But the work has to be done. The investments have to be made, even if all that you had was agriculture, right? There is a value chain in agriculture, from farming to processing to packaging, that supports small businesses that can create large investments and large sources of income and an enterprise that become a reservoir base for each state to get more income and to provide more services. But sometimes you have to do the investment in terms of identification, tagging, labeling, registration, digitization, so that you can have all of the data from which to extract.
I'm just so happy
information.
that you mentioned data. Is it that we are not paying attention to that? Because in planning and planning for success, that becomes an imperative. What's your view?
Well, data is the biggest currency in the world today. And so some of the things that we did back in Lagos was to begin to allow our data to shake hands. For example, there were so many departments of government where I could be 3 different names. So if I filled a form, in some places they asked me to fill my first name first and my surname last. So I could be Babatunde Raji Fashola in one place, I could be Fashola Raji Babatunde in another place. So during my tenure, we changed that. We standardized our system of data collection. And then we began to interrogate the data across fields. So if you bought a car and you owned land, we could cross-check and see whether your tax income that you declared was commensurate with your car you own or the land that you own, and we could call you in and say, you're under declaring income. And data can do all of that. So, and as people began to see that we could actually check at the back end, voluntary tax payments increased. So simple.
And that helped government.
So that's
to run.
a place for everybody to play, federal and state government, in terms of revenue. But I think before we go away from what the meat of the matter is, how much of what government does do the citizens know? And which government is responsible for what? So ideally, matters of antenatal care, bruises in the local government, normal, uncomplicated delivery should not leave a local government. So we ran a healthcare system, 24-hour primary healthcare system. We started and completed about 11. So basic things, those are local government responsibilities.
Yes, I know that, yeah. But sometimes, there's a break in development, continuity, I'd like to use that. I'm always very careful using the word. But if we have a fasciolar administration that has put some foundation on, and it's foundation for development. Now, how do we ensure continuity? And I'd just like to drop it because I can see that they're giving me signs about time. Also speak to monitoring and
It's
evaluation.
an interesting thing. You can't guarantee that two sets of personalities will act in the same way.
It might not be priority, but these are essentials.
Now, and this is the interesting thing about democracy. At the heart of it all public officials, whether in a democracy or in an autocracy, are fighting for public attention. So if the public makes it clear to them that this thing is a no-no, no responsible government touches it if they want to retain power. But oftentimes, our voices are very strong on the things that government has not done well. And they are less strong on the things that government has done well. That we are claiming ownership of this, and this is not going to change. And if you dare to touch it, you will see the full impact of our wrath at the polls.
Well, sometimes I wonder too that we are complacent about growth imperatives, which we at least bring succor or help us to reach that dream Nigeria that we all aspire to. Now, I would want you to please speak on the roles the leader must play to make public sector work like private sector. You have been in the private sector.
Well, it depends on how you see yourself, really. But you cannot really impact the public sector without understanding its mechanics. The bureaucracy is a global concept for public service delivery. The reason why it works the way it works is that is perhaps the best way to keep it on its feet. It is different from the private sector goals. That said, however, if you understand his language, there's nothing government can do. That's what I've learned. It's a fantastic animal, but you have to speak his language. And the language starts from the head of service, the PAMSECs. The civil servants and the public servants respect their PAMSECs and their head of service more than any governor or president. So if you want to succeed with them, you have to bed with those officers who are their leaders and initiate reforms slowly, because change is difficult to impact. And if you do that, the likelihood is that you will get them to commit and identify with some of the goals you want to achieve. And when they are sold, trust me, you will see results.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Oh my God, our time is, they're saying we're almost over, but I'd like a final word from you. What are your hopes? What are your aspirations? You've seen it through for a true Nigeria to emerge, the kind that will make the governed make demands and understand their rights, and what those in government should be able to do. Talking about leadership by example, for example.
Well, seasons come and seasons go, and I believe that the quality of governance we get will be determined by the increasing quality of our human capital that comes into government. The best cannot refuse to participate in the most important undertaking and expect that it will work for them. They must come and invest in it, their skill, their time, and their resources. And in so doing, shape how the animal called government behaves. So those are my thoughts.
Are you fulfilled? Haven't served through? Final word.
If you ask me, I am the most unkind person in self-assessment because I always see room to improve. But in terms of modest achievements, I can say confidently that everywhere that I have been, I have left it better than I met it. I've moved the needle, and that is enough
that's the
to do.
spirit,
That's
making
enough to
it
do.
better than you met it. And that's what I'm sure we have attempted to achieve on this special edition of Bridges, ensuring that we as governed and those in government have roles and responsibilities. And until, of course, we are able to harmonize the roles and responsibilities, we might have a longer time building that bridge of my dream Nigeria. I thank you so much, Your Excellency, for being part of this edition. And we'll move on. We'll still come back to you because I know that there are several areas that we are not able to touch.
Yes, yes.
Is that a promise? So I can tell my viewers.
Yes, it is.
All right. So we'll be back again. Thanks for watching. Bridges will be back same time next week on NTA. Keep on watching.